Hello, Rob, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. Tell me, there's been a change with the FCA regulations and consumer duty. Tell me, why is it such a departure from previous FCA regulations?
Yeah, so I think a lot of dealers will be familiar with the previous TCF or Treating Customers Fairly rules. And I think some of the dealers I've spoken to, they just see this as, it's the same. Actually, it's not. It's fundamentally different. This is a real significant step change, both in terms of what the FCA expects and what the FCA is trying to achieve. Consumer duty is much more geared to the digital age. And there's a lot more emphasis on proactivity from both the lenders and the dealers, and evidence of continuous improvement, rather than probably more of a tick box exercise, which is what the old rules were.
Is it quite complicated and difficult for dealers to achieve?
Under consumer duty, the FCA has called out specific roles, and there's the role of the manufacturer, mostly aimed at the lender. Sometimes dealers could fall into that. And then there is the specific role of the introducer. And there's slightly different responsibilities, but you need to know as a dealer the role that you play. On the assumption that most dealers are going to fall into the distributor category as a finance introducer, what it really means for dealers, you've got to know and understand every single little detail relating to a lender's product. You need to know all the nuances of the product, you need to know who it's targeted at, and you need to be able to evidence that you're introducing that product in a compliant and consistent manner back to the lender. They will be asking you for that information. So expect some changes to processes. This is important in terms of the size of the motor finance industry. Last year in 2022, £40.7 billion worth of motor finance credit was issued according to the FLA. New cars alone, I think that was 84% of new cars were actually physically sold with motor finance. So this is massive. It does underpin a lot of automotive sales.
Is it quite complicated and difficult for dealers to achieve?
Well, it's new. It's going to be frightening. I mean, I think there will be a lot of dealers where this will just be a natural extension anyway, because under treating customers fairly, they'll already have some of those principles in place to build upon. What we're trying to do at iVendi is try and make this as easy as we can for both the dealers, the lenders, and also at the same time support the FCA with their outcomes. So the first deadline the first major deadline of consumer duty has just recently passed at the end of April, and as part of that deadline, the lenders needed to produce guidance to be made available to dealers on exactly all of that information. So some of the dealers now will have started to receive what's being called introducer packs in the industry. Some are quite short, some are quite lengthy, but there's lots and lots of specific documentation you will need to remember about that finance product. What we're going to be doing over at iVendi is, in both our showroom solutions and in both our online solutions, we're going to take that content from lenders, coupled with video information and any other digital assets that those lenders can provide us, and we're going to bring those into our systems. So just before the next deadline of the end of July, expect a consumer duty step to be brought into both the online and the showroom world, where we will make sure that the customer does fully understand and we can evidence all of those 4 key outcomes for both the dealer and the lender.
Have dealers done enough to be getting to where they need to be, or is there more that needs to be done?
So there are expectations from the FCA that beyond that 31st of July deadline, the board of those firms needs to have robust processes in place to evidence it's doing what it does, and there needs to be yearly board sign-off in terms of compliance with consumer duty regulations.
Rob, there are a lot of changes that need to be made, but we could be optimistic about this.
Done in the right way, I think this will be really, really good, and I think it's an opportunity to probably banish some of those long-standing stereotypes about the automotive industry.
Rob, thank you so much for your time.